Attention Sleepless Knights. Thank you for consuming this OSI 74 product broadcast, live from the Black Knight satellite. For optimum performance and safety, your host, Mr. Lobo, asks that you please listen to these instructions carefully. When in a hospital or other healthcare facility, observe the restrictions on the use of electronic devices. Switch off before boarding an aircraft to prevent interference with communications systems. Do not operate this device in the presence of flammable gases or fumes, chemical plants, or where blasting operations are in progress. Always listen hands-free while driving a vehicle. Failure to observe these instructions may lead to immediate termination. It's time now for the show to begin. Thank you. Have a very pleasant evening.
You're not dreaming. You're listening to the Sleepless Knights podcast and Paul eating popcorn.
You know, looking at my surroundings, I don't think we're in the office anymore. I don't think we're in Kansas anymore.
We're not. We actually are at the Colonial Theater in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. So maybe we're not even doing our podcast. Maybe we're doing a Blobcast.
A Blobcast?
A Blobcast.
A Blobcast.
Mm-hmm. For those of you who are unaware, it was in 1958 that audiences first enjoyed the movie The Blob. And within that movie, there's a scene where, and this film was filmed locally in parts of Pennsylvania, Phoenixville, Coatesville, what was the other place, other surrounding area? Downingtown, thank you.
Downingtown.
Phoenixville, Coatesville, that was Dixie chiming in with a mouthful of popcorn. Downingtown.
She's my supplier.
That's right. He's slapping his vein, his thirsty popcorn vein, so he can mainline some butter flavoring.
Yep.
So in the movie The Blob, there's a scene where the Blob gets loose in a movie theater, and the entire audience runs in a panic out the front doors. And it's such a famous scene in film history that people started imitating this, and they had to build a whole event around this. So the opening ceremonies here, right here in the Colonial Theater.
Right over there, if you can see, folks.
Right over there. As people bursting out the doors into the street, and we have the fire department block off the street with emergency barricades, and then there's crowds of people watching outside. And it's a tremendous, really fun kickoff to a very fun event. We do double features all day on Saturday. After the run out on Friday, we do double features all day Saturday. This year we're doing a spook show. Mr. Lobo hosts a spook show on Saturday.
The movie's starting.
And then we also have on Sunday, we have a independent film with Christopher Mim called Demon with the Atomic Brain. And so it's just, we're Rico Browning, the creature from the Black Lagoon. And we're also showing the creature from the Black Lagoon in 3D. And we're showing I Married a Monster from Outer Space. So many things are happening. And I'm the master of ceremonies.
Ooh,
Mr. Lobo. And
you're master of like renaming everything, rebranding
everything. And, well, you can't spell Blob without Lobo. L-O-B-B-L-O-B. Something. You need Lobo with if you've got an L or a B in your O. Blobo? Mr. Blobo.
Mr. Blobo.
Just call me Mr. Blobo. Blobo of attorney at law.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I'm Bob Blah Blah, attorney at law.
With your law blog.
Blob's law blog?
Law blog.
Okay. So if you can hear the Beatles playing, is it the Beatles? Sounds like the Beatles.
I don't know. It's a copy. Sounds like a copyright strike to me.
Yeah. Thanks, Colonial. No, we have. They're showing a movie here in theater too that you may be or may not be able to hear. It could be a trailer,
maybe.
So yes, we're right here near the snack bar and right here near Theater 2.
Just pick up the mics and just go sit in the theater.
Yeah.
Be the annoying people.
Exactly.
We could be Statler and Waldorf.
Statler.
This movie sucks. Whoa.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
that was too direct, but
Where's Waldorf?
where's Waldorf?
Okay.
So when you do the run out now,
Yes.
it's themed every year, isn't it? There's usually some sort of storyline.
Sometimes there is, yeah. I mean, we did it when we had Marta Christian from Lost in Space. We did a thing where a meteor was going to crush the theater, and we all ran out. We've had various themes in the past. Blob goes Hawaiian and all that kind of stuff. But this year, we're bringing it home. It is about the Blob. And in this storyline...
As it should be, because this year's a monumental year.
Yes, it is. It's the 60th anniversary, 1958 to... what year is it?
2018?
How much math is that?
Huh? I don't know.
That's a lot of math.
That's a lot of numbers.
Anyway, it's 2018, and I'm told that's 60 years. So that's a big, big, big anniversary for the Blob. And a big, big, big show. It gets bigger every year. The run out sold out in 2 minutes. And got some special guests that we're going to be talking to today. We have Dr. Frankenstone, who is kind of like the mascot and always trying to find ways to capture the Blob and failing, always trying ways to keep us safe from the Blob and failing. And then we have the actual caretaker of the Blob, Wes Shank, who is a film collector. He wrote a book called From Silicone to Silver Screen, which is about the making of the Blob. And he actually owns the actual Blob in a five-gallon drum.
And it still exists, and it's still
Still
viable. It's still what it is.
Yeah,
It's still
has viscosity.
It's still runs rampant every now and then.
It still gets loose. So we can't contain our excitement or the Blob much longer. Do we want to go over to do we need to talk about anything else before we try to talk to one of our guests?
We can go to their guests, and then we can bring it back and talk about what we did today and past experiences. And
Okay. All right.
sounds like fun.
That sounds good. Well, I'm going to go over and who do you think I should talk to first?
I don't know. Should I roll dice?
The natural 20?
I don't. Okay. I think I left my dice.
You
at
have
home.
yours are dice at home.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you pick. Who do we talk to first?
Whoever is talking next after this commercial break is who we're talking to.
Okay, so we're going to be talking to either Dr. Frankenstone or Wes Shank. Whoever,
Or Sleazy.
Or Sleazy P.
'Cause
Martini.
I'm an idiot when I come to edit.
Yeah. So we'll be right back, and we'll be talking to someone here on the Sleepless Nights of Insomnia. It's the Blobcast edition. Blobcast.
Greetings, this is Mr. Lobo from the future. In this space would have been a commercial for pure entertainment and funny purposes. However, it has been found by the High Council for Human Consumption that the artists from the Sleepless Knights are bankrupting the original copyright holder of. Therefore, we're going to remove the commercial that's here for your entertainment, or they will remove the entire project for nothing more than spite. Had we been able to keep here, you would have heard and we're so sorry to the High Council for Human Consumption. May we praise you for keeping the public safe from malicious attempts usurping 60-plus-year-old copyrights to something that may not even be in the public eye anymore. Our bad for trying to pull a fast one. You caught us, and we have removed so we can place our show back onto the airwaves. Thank you for your patience. Back to the show.
You're not dreaming. You're listening to the Sleepless Nights Blobcast. I'm Mr. Lobo. And to my left is the, brilliant is maybe stretching it.
Spectacular. Omnipotent.
Present,
Present. Yes, I am present.
Dr. Frank N. Stone, one of the pillars, one of the founding fathers of the mighty Blob Fest.
Oh, go on.
that has been going on. And
I mean, go
oh,
on.
go on. Okay, yeah,
go on and on.
Okay, he is tall and he has cat-like reflexes. He often wears a very smart, freshly pressed lab coat, and he's got a freshly pressed soul patch or beard that he wears. It's not really soul patch; it's more like a Van Dyke.
It's more of a scrappy, not a scrappy
shaggy?
dude, but a shaggy. Yeah,
Nobody wears a scrappy
No,
dude.
no. That would get me drawn right out of
put
town.
him up.
Right.
Puppy power.
They would cancel Blobfest if I wore that.
Don't
Gee.
wear a scrappy on your chin.
horrible.
That's terrible. The penultimate, the mad scientist, right? The mad scientist's mad scientist.
That's me. Yes, and I think that there's some clause, there's some sort of a union requirement where you have to have a mad scientist on board for any type of event like this.
Absolutely, I think it's steeped in the horror host tradition. You're either a vampire or a mad scientist.
Yeah, and I'm there to keep things underhand if things get out of hand, or keep things with my hand on
something
top
with
of
the
it.
hand, something with the hands.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
yeah.
it was a lot funnier in my mind before
Yeah.
I said it.
Well, we can still work on it. So, Frankenstone, you've been involved with this, and I certainly wouldn't be involved in this if it wasn't for you inviting me to be involved.
Oh, thank you.
This. I remember just hearing about Blobfest and looking up on the internet, trying to find anything about Blobfest, and seeing photos and at that time very short video clips because the internet was slow.
Imagine.
People running out of the theater. I always just wanted to just see it and be here, and I never thought that I would get to be part of it, and we would be doing all these skits and having all this fun, and certainly not hosting or emceeing. So, I think I was trying to get a table set up here, and then at some point you said, "Mr. Lobo, what are you doing up here?
Get out there on the stage.
Get up
You
on-
should be up there helping us
get up
out."
on the stage." So I really, really appreciate. Wanted to thank you for
You're welcome.
for inviting me to come play in the playground with you guys.
No, and I want to thank you because you've really brought us to a different level. You've definitely brought the show to a new height.
I think it was always there. I think that I appreciate that comment, but I feel like everyone upped their game. I think everyone. I think I was an outsider, and I think that because you had an outsider with you, maybe that sort of like you start looking at it from an outsider's perspective.
Well, and you brought a lot to the table. You've definitely brought a creative genius mind to it, and I think that helps us rise to your level as well. You've got a lot more experience out there in the world of horror hosting and emceeing such events, and we only get to do this once a year, whereas you do this quite often. And it's nice to have someone like yourself that's an expert in the field.
Do go on.
That's willing to take us guys under your wing too, and help us, fly a little more.
Well, I think it's a mutually beneficial thing because, like I say, I feel like this event is singular, very different from any other event, and you guys were kind of insulated to where you kind of had it all to yourselves, and you did it your own way, and you didn't really have much to compare it to.
Right.
And because of that, it is totally different than any other kind of event. I always do this joke that every other fan event is about shame. Because it's like it's the thing that you don't have in common with anyone else that you're interested in, and you're digging through your dusty box of comic books or posters while your family is secretly loathing, waiting for you to finish. And
Or why did you write a check for this, dear? Or
right. And this is like the whole town gets into it, and there's this sort of community spirit kind of involved in it.
Absolutely.
And it's like we're proud of this crappy movie that was made here. And so I think that I certainly learned a lot about working as a team and as a collaborative and as I think we have a great ensemble. I always enjoy how Friday night comes together, and we have this
It's a lot
kind
of
of
fun.
blob universe, where we have Dr. Frankenstone, and then we've got Dash Daring and
Dr. Hack.
Dr. Hack, and somewhere the blob is loose, and it's just like there's this whole kind of mythology there, the blobverse that we all live in. So it's very exciting every year to do, and the audience is all part of it. That's what's so great too, is everyone is like Wes was saying, mock terror.
Yeah.
Everyone is ready to be afraid and run away from the blob.
It's great. One thing that I really like about this, our event, that I don't see really in any other horror or monster movie events other than Monster Bash, but is we're very family friendly. We have kids that are 5 years old here that want to run out screaming. Don't really see too much of that where we have a costume contest. Little kids get into that. And one of the things that we really wanted to make a priority with Blobfest is to keep it family friendly. Make sure that we're not offending anyone, nothing gory or too scary or anything like that. Just fun. And that's what the movie The Blob is. I think it's not overly scary or anything like that, but it's a fun movie. It's got some goofy, kitschy parts to it. And you got Steve McQueen before he was, it's Stephen McQueen before he became Steve McQueen.
Before he dropped the N.
Right, and that's when he got rugged. But no, it was a great, 1958 movie. It was one of the first in color with this monster that was just this bright glowing red. And our town really gets into it. It's like our hometown hero, like you said. The audience is fantabulous. Our whole town gets into it. They put blob stuff on their menus at the restaurants.
I had a blob burger. Delicious.
They are, and blob bacon. And
I got to help design a blob pancake.
What?
I told this. I was at this restaurant, and like the cook comes out. And he's like, Mr. Lobo, I have an idea for a blob pancake. Do you want to come in the kitchen and help me figure it out? Like, do you think it should have strawberry sauce on it? Or do you think it should? And I'm like, well, maybe it should be amorphous shape instead of shaped like a pancake, you know? And then a couple of days later, I come back to the restaurant. I was like, look, Mr. Lobo, it's on the menu. And, of course, I have to order it,
right.
And I feel like I'm not trying to say this in a disparaging way, like I'm in Mayberry or something.
Right.
But it's so surreal because it's like everyone knows who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah.
Everyone is involved in it. And to sit there eating my blob pancake and then taking photographs with all the waitresses while eating my breakfast. I mean, it's just indicative of how infectious the whole thing is.
Yeah, it takes over just like the blob.
It's blob, right? And it swells and gets bigger. Now, I've only been involved in this maybe the past 7 or 8.
I believe so. Yeah, I would have said 8.
So I mean, give me a little encapsulation of the germ, the amoeba. How did this get from? I know people always wanted to run out of the theater because it's a location from a film. Is that how it started?
Essentially it started. People would just do that sort of organically. Like they'd always kind of come to the front door and ask, can we just run out? In whether there was a movie playing or not. And so,
Did you work at the theater?
No. Here's the tale.
Yeah.
But so people would always do that. They would always kind of want to run out, and then we started running the movie like once over the weekend, and then it just started to kind of pick up some steam. But the way I became involved was my second son was born over in Phoenixville Hospital, and during that time labor can be very difficult and it's very painful. So I needed a break.
For the mother too.
Right, exactly. So I needed a break. So I ran across the street, and there's a little corner shop, and they had a poster for Blobfest. And before that, I had always grown up being a monster kid. I loved the old movies. I had no idea.
Did you read Famous Monsters?
Of course, yeah. And the old Frankenstein, the Wolfman, the Dracula, the classic Universal monsters. And I had no idea the Blob had anything to do with this area at all. So I saw this. I had to get involved and ran over and talked with Mary Foote, the theater director, and she said, "Sure, if you want to hand out posters, that'd be great." But then I kept being, on and on. Let's do this. I have another idea. How about this? And then it just kept growing and growing and growing. much like the Blob itself. But we had like a street game where you could go around to the different locations. We eventually became a street fair where we have hot rod cars and tons of artists that are within the horror realm, but also within the family friendly realm. You wouldn't be ashamed to bring your kid down the street. They're not going to see anything they shouldn't see. So it's nice to see how everything has just grown and grown to where we would only have a few people here and there run out every once in a while. Then when we started letting people in to watch the movie and a bit of a stage show on Friday night, started filling up a little more, and then we started having to sell tickets out of necessity because of such a demand.
Too many people.
And now this year, the run out sold out in 2 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that was, we have a lot of people with their finger on that button to, as soon as they went on sale, to buy as many as they could. So yeah, it's a little overwhelming to imagine that it's grown so
Went
big.
from a free show
Yeah.
to tickets selling out in 2 minutes. And this year I think is our biggest yet. We've got 8
Absolutely.
films showing. We're doing a spook show with Daughter of Horror.
Yeah.
And again, the thing about, I think a lot of horror people probably listening with their arms folded going, horror is not supposed to be family friendly, it's supposed to be horrible, shocking. But the thing is, if you don't bring young people into it, it dies.
Correct.
And so it needs to be an entry level for this kind of thing. There needs to be an entry level for fantasy and imagination and shocks and thrills and horror. And I think that the classics, and again, the market in the 50s was primarily young people, teenagers and younger. So if you can't get young people into this stuff, it will just go away. So it is important, and we certainly need to know where we come from. We need to know our history, and horror and science fiction used to be thought of as just for kids and juvenile.
Well, it was like the Blob was amazing in that regard, that the teenagers were the heroes. And it used, primarily the teenagers were those kids today, and their hot rod cars, and they're it's
Juvenile delinquents.
trouble. But this was cool for the kids. If you see, you can take us seriously. We're going to take care of business here. We're going to help you out.
Yeah, in those old movies, it was always a scientist or the army or
right.
But yeah, it was great that they believed the teenagers.
Right. And the teacher even threw a rock through the window. Can you imagine that?
Yay!
Well, that's another aspect of Blobfest that I really like. Is I don't want to say it's like Rocky Horror Picture Show, but whenever we play the Blob,
less fishnet,
right?
Many
Exactly.
fishnet stockings.
But when we played, I've seen it a gajillion times from being here, but it's always refreshing because the audience gets into it. They laugh, they crack up. There's lines that are always a ringer every single time. It's a zinger.
It's interesting because there's two minds of that, right? There's the people who come to a show like that and experience as a social thing,
right?
And we've all seen this movie before. People are throwing out heckles and things like that. And then there are the people who are like, they're not giving this film enough respect. I had to leave because too many people were laughing at the Blob.
Right.
I think that there is there's two sides to that, and again, there's the entry level and then there's the expert level. And sometimes there's not a lot of difference between the entry level and the expert level, because at a certain point, like at the entry level, it's like, these films are dopey and let's make a bunch of jokes. But then you start getting into it, and then you become that guy who's like, they're not paying the films enough respect. And then on the other side of that, when you get a little older, you take yourself a little less seriously. Then you're on the other side of that, where it's like, well, I've seen this movie 40 times, and it looks like Smucker's jelly. so again, anything that I think keeps people coming, keeps people interested, keeps it relevant, is always respectful, because you validate it by presenting it. Every time an audience is entertained by a film, it is part of the legacy and the future of that film. And you got to keep people watching.
And we do try to address that, the factor of people that are serious about that kind of thing. So we show the Blob on Sunday. and that's a much more intimate affair. It's not a loud audience. It's not. It's more for I'll call them the film fans that are going to want to just stay and watch and have more of a quiet, intimate experience with it.
Sunday's real low key, and I like that.
Yeah,
and everybody's tired and hungover anyway.
Right. And Saturday night is the double feature of the Blob and whatever
And
else.
speaking of taking things seriously, I got to say one more thing before we wrap this up. I noticed that you have a tattoo of the Colonial Theater.
I do
on
have a
your
tattoo
arm.
of the Colonial Theater on my arm and the Blob.
Oh, wow. There's a outstretched hand coming out of a large gelatinous molten mass here.
Terrifying,
on his
isn't
arm.
it?
That is incredible.
Now, I'm sorry, but is this going to break the muscle or break the microphone if I start flexing?
Yeah. Oh, be careful. Be
All right,
careful.
all right,
Yeah.
all right,
Watch
easy.
those. Watch those guns. Be careful.
They are well loaded.
This is no weapons allowed in this establishment. Thank you, Shane, for talking with us a little bit
Thank you.
about
Thank you for everything.
Blob and the Blob Fest. And we're going to have a great time on this year. Aren't
We always do.
Always do. It's always a pleasure. We'll see you at the Mighty Mighty Blob Fest.
Absolutely. Hearty handshake. Hearty handshake.
handshake.
Oh, there it is. Ah!
We come from the retro future. We want you to be nostalgic for what's to come. A new channel and distribution network for smart people with bad taste, featuring content from Church of the Subgenius, Creature Features, Cinema, Insomnia, Sleazy P. Martini and Guar, Troma, Corey Maccabee, horror, sci-fi, Saturday morning cartoons, midnight movies, and assorted trash we love. Add our channel OSI 74 to your Roku player or visit OSI74.com. All systems go. You're not dreaming. We are here with the caretaker of the Blob, Wes Shank. Wes, it's an honor and a privilege to have you here on the Sleepless Knights podcast.
It's a thrill to be here.
And we're here in the Colonial.
We are. This is a very historic theater.
This is the theater. This is the theater where the Blob broke loose.
It's the theater that everybody sees in the movie, The Blob. Yes.
And everybody who sees that movie wants to come here and run out those doors and be chased by the Blob.
They absolutely do. It's crazy, but people love running out and screaming and in mock terror from the Blob.
It's like the steps in Rocky, right? Everybody's got to do it at least once, run up and down those steps.
Yeah, if you're in the area, you got to do that.
So how did you become the caretaker of the Blob? I mean, that's a lot of responsibility, and frankly, Wes, your record isn't great. He gets loose like every year.
Every year at Blobfest, it takes over the theater again, and I have to. We have got to
Contain
turn
him,
got to turn down the air conditioning and make it cold.
The healthful air conditioning. But you somehow get him back in that container and keep the world pretty safe for the most part.
Pretty safe, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how did that happen? How did that happen, Wes?
It's a long story, but I grew up reading the magazine Famous Monsters of Filmland.
Uncle Forey.
The Uncle Forey, he's a great guy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And they would talk about all these movies from the 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on. But there's no way of really seeing them in the mid-60s. They weren't released to TV yet. And I wanted to see them badly. Of course, there weren't VCRs at that point and so on. But I discovered that one of the area theaters would run a double feature matinee on Saturday afternoons. And most times they would run a horror and science fiction film that I wanted to see. So I would go, and I was in my late teens at the time, and here I am in line with all these 8-year-olds, so I'm trying to hunch down so I don't stand out like a sore thumb.
And this is what, 65 or something?
In 1965 was the time. One Saturday afternoon, they showed The Blob. And I'm one of those people who will sit there and I'll read the credits. I've always done that. And
I'm one of those guys too, so I understand
Oh,
that.
good.
And then your family's trying to leave, and you're like, "Well, hold on."
yeah, I'm like the last one to leave the theater because I'm reading the
I
credits.
want to see who the second assistant animator is.
But I saw it was made by a place called Valley Forge Films. And I scratched my head and said, wait a minute. Films are made in Hollywood. They're made in California. Valley Forge? Well, I sat there and thoroughly enjoyed the film
It's a great one.
and went home and decided I'm going to look it up in the phone book. There it was.
Wow, you let your fingers do the walking, and then the film production company is right there in your local yellow
It's in my
pages.
backyard.
Wow,
yeah.
that's incredible.
It was located out in Chester Springs, which I had never heard of at the time, and it's just not too far from Valley Forge. And we called up, my friend Dave and I, because I was a little timid about calling, so I made him make the initial call. But we called and said we had just seen the Blob matinee, and we loved it. Do you give studio tours? And the voice at the other end of the line said, yes, absolutely. Come on out in about 2 weeks. And so we did. The fellow who gave us the tour was none other than the director of the Blob himself.
Wow, Shorty Yeaworth
Shorty
in person.
Yeaworth, Irvin S. Yeaworth Jr.
That's exciting. Wow.
And so that was thrilling. And I to this day, I regret not taking a camera with me. I don't know why I never did.
We have 2 more Shorty's films this year. We've got Dinosaurus and 4D Man showing.
That's exciting. That'd
I'm
be
very
great.
excited about that. So you meet Shorty.
So we meet Shorty, and he shows us around. The main building had offices in it and editing rooms and a mini theater, screening room, and so on. But then he took us around a couple of buildings. I call them, I think they used to be barns. I don't know. But some buildings, small buildings that were converted into sound stages. And towards the end of the tour, he points over to a dark corner of one sound stage. He says, see that black 5-gallon can over there in the corner? And through the darkness, I could see it. And he says, yeah, I see it. And he says, well, the Blob is in there.
Oh, wow.
I said, what?
So it's just in a 5-gallon can in an empty studio.
And yeah.
Wow.
So he goes over and brings it out into the light, takes the lid off, and sure enough, there's this red, sticky goo in there. And
dread is a good word. There's a red sticky goo. Yes.
Yeah, it's about 2 gallons worth. And he said, this is the material we used for the film.
Now, wasn't it hard? It wasn't hard. It's still pliable.
No, I found out years later that it's an obsolete type of silicone that will never harden.
Wow.
So it's just as flexible and pliable today as it was 60 years ago.
That is unbelievable in itself.
It is, but I've met some chemists over the years, and they've verified it too.
Wow, that actually makes it more scary. That's more scary than the real Blob, just this thing that always stays malleable.
And what scares me, about the Blob, this stuff is going to outlive me.
Wow. Wow. So how did you get it away from Shorty?
Well, he gave us a little sample in a jar.
Well, that's
home.
pretty generous in itself.
Yeah. Took it home, put it on the shelf in my bedroom. Mm-hmm. Well, this was 1965.
And it started to throb
and
pulsate.
I had to keep it in the freezer. No.
Don't turn your back on it.
This was
It's like mayonnaise on a hot day.
Yeah. This was 1965. I had started collecting movie memorabilia, actually, in around 1960.
Okay.
Started collecting movie posters and publicity photographs and everything. But I didn't have any props or anything at that time. I said, I'm thinking to myself, as I look at the jar on the shelf, I said, I think sometime down the road, somebody's going to inadvertently throw out that can of silicone, as it turns out it is. And, they're not going to know what it is. They're going to toss it, and there goes a piece of movie history. I mean, this is one of the few actual movie monsters from the 50s that you can still see in person today. So I called him up. I said, would you be willing to sell it? I'd like to add it to my collection and preserve it. He says, oh, no, absolutely not. Well, I was an obnoxious teenager. I was 19
That's
at the
hard
time.
to believe, Wes.
Yes, I know. And thank you. I know you're being polite. But I was persistent and kept after him. And finally, in November of 1965, he relented. He says, okay, kid, come on out and get it. So I went out late on a Friday afternoon after I got off of work, and
That's an
was able to
incredible
get it from him.
story. I mean, obviously you had a job as a teenager, but you weren't throwing newspapers or something, right? I mean, you had some money to buy this.
I had a little bit. I had to save up over
Yeah.
a number of months. I don't remember exactly what I was doing at the time.
Oh
but,
wow, wow, that's amazing. How industrious for a young man to do that. That's incredible.
Yeah. And then at the same time, he surprised me, and he included a miniature set from the film. Now, this is what makes the Blob appear so large on the screen in many cases, was the use of various photographic miniature sets. So he included one of the exterior of the the exterior of the Colonial Theater, and he also gave me a copy of the shooting script, which had a different title. On the shooting
Original
script, the
title of
film
the
was
Blob?
called The Molten Monster.
The Molten Monster. No, it really doesn't have the same ring. No.
And then during shooting, a few weeks after that,
Yeah.
while they were shooting on the slate, on the clapboard,
Yeah.
they had the title The Molten Meteor.
Oh wow, another
And
change.
Another change. Well, it went through different titles.
Molten Meteor.
At one point, it was called.
In color.
They were playing around with different names.
Yeah.
At one point, it was called the Glob,
The Glob.
but they couldn't do that because
Yeah.
that was a Walt Kelly character in the Pogo comic strip.
Oh,
so
okay,
They couldn't do that.
okay.
And they were considering the Glob that girdled the world. Night of the Creeping Dread, all these bizarre titles. But it was halfway through shooting at a production meeting that they came up with the Blob.
It's perfect.
Yeah,
Couldn't be anything else.
right.
Yeah. So you got this from Shorty. He gave you the miniatures, which are what sort of like dioramas with photographs glued to them.
Exactly, yeah. Just photographs, hand-colored black and white photographs mounted to masonite.
Wow, that's incredible.
And then over the years, I knew Shorty
this stuff slowly drips over it, and then it's sped up, or
Yeah. You only need a couple of handfuls of the silicone, and just place it on the set, and then to make it move, you'd tip the set and let gravity move the silicone.
Wow.
They would have a camera, a studio light, and a miniature set all mounted onto a piece of plywood. And that was mounted to a gimbal, and it could be swung around in any direction they desired and make the Blob
I see.
silicone.
So you're playing with the gravity here to do all the work for you.
Gravity did all the work.
Sort of like instead of Fred Astaire running up the walls of his room in Royal Wedding with the camera, or 2001 where the stewardess is walking up the wall. You've got the set and the camera all mounted together, turning together, and then whatever is in that set can pretty much defy gravity and go any direction.
Yeah, it was very clever,
Very
very
clever.
ingenious for the time.
Magic tricks. That's
It's
what
funny.
they used to do.
I talk
Magic.
to young people today, and they say, "What? It wasn't done with CGI?" No, they didn't have computers in the 50s.
Didn't have CGI. They did have some sophisticated animation in certain 50s films, not computer done, a lot of hand done
Yeah, Ray
animation.
Harryhausen type of thing.
Harryhausen did things, and of course, in one of your favorite films, Forbidden Planet, the id is fully animated when we see it, when it's not invisible, when it
Correct.
has the energy beams hitting it and it becomes alive. We're talking about a teenager who starts a collection, but really you've become an archivist, a collector, a caretaker, preserver of history. I mean, collectors and archivists are heroes. I mean, a lot of things would just disappear from the earth if there weren't these guys who were maybe a little obsessive, containing these things and displaying these things and preserving these things. You want to talk a little bit about that side of that in your collection?
Yeah. The Blob was the first prop and someone I got, but I picked up other things over the years. One of the big points in my life was in May of 1970. MGM was having a huge auction of props and costumes for 2.5 weeks. I was able to get a couple of days off from work and fly out to California for that. And I knew MGM had made my favorite science fiction film, Forbidden Planet, and I actually picked up one of the flying saucer models that was used in that, and
Wes,
picked up a ray gun that was used in it. And then through private collectors and doing some wheeling and dealing and trading, I picked up some more things over the years.
Did you get any of the Krell technology along with that?
Not along with that, but
Later?
Later on, I picked up the Krell door lock.
Oh, wow. The Krell door lock, Wes? Oh, I'm getting chills. That's amazing.
And it still has the original light bulbs.
You still
in
remember
it.
the combination?
Yep. I remember, yeah.
Wow, that's awesome, Wes. That is incredible.
And then
do you bring these out for film shows and to display them?
I have.
That's
from
wonderful.
time to time. I love sharing these things with the public and let the public see them and photograph them. And I know that I'm trying to preserve some of these things.
That's wonderful. What's great about Forbidden Planet too is that those props were so good that MGM used them in so many other things. You know? So you get to see those outfits in Twilight Zone and the I think that ramp with that stairwell going up into that spaceship we've seen 100 times. And Robbie, boy, they make that guy work. They put Robbie in everything that you can imagine.
I did an hour-long lecture 2 years ago at the Monster Bash out in Mars, Pennsylvania.
Great show.
Telling about how all these Forbidden Planet props were used over and over again, and I would show them on the screen. Yeah.
They don't do that anymore, and a lot of directors like Kubrick and stuff, he destroyed everything because he didn't want to see the props from 2001 used in other films. But, I kind of like that little seek and find of, I know where that came from, and I know that's the Krell door lock, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, yeah.
Wes, we could talk for another 17 hours for sure.
I know I could,
but maybe some other time, maybe we could do this again.
Absolutely, would love to.
Certainly, let's catch up when we see each other again at Blobfest, the 60th anniversary of the Blob.
Yeah, happy birthday, Blob.
Happy birthday, Blob. Thank you, Wes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Greetings, this is Mr. Lobo from the future. In this space would have been a commercial for our bad for trying to pull a fast one. You caught us, and we have removed so we can place our show back onto the airwaves. Thank you for your patience. Back to the show.
Wow, that was a lot of information about Blobfest.
I'm still processing it.
Is that what that was? Yeah, I heard some noises.
Yeah,
I thought maybe you were throbbing and pulsating.
I tried not to laugh when that came up.
Like
You did not just say that.
I like to keep this red, throbbing, pulsing thing next to my bed at all times.
Don't we all? So we did some special stuff today and this week, really.
It's been quite a day. We had ABC 6, the local Philadelphia ABC affiliate, come out, and they filmed a Blobfest segment with us. We got to do a run out with them. We Blob-proofed the projection room.
Which that reminds me, I now have to update my resume to puppeteer.
Paul puppeted this giant beanbag chair that was supposed to be the Blob.
And they did, the ABC team did not like the idea. Like, now you have to credit this as Big Spoon. And they're like, hell
they're
are
not
you
as
talking
forgiving about
You're not
Big
even going to
Spoon.
get a credit. The Blob is not even going to have a credit.
Yeah, they don't credit people in TV news. That's too much responsibility.
It was funny is that I'm underneath the Blob, and he's like, make it pulsate more and stuff. And it's like, as much as I'm shaking it, that thing is so big. So it's like, I can't tell how much is. So I'm actually under there, and I'm bobbing my head and shaking my arms and making the whole thing rock, hoping I don't pop out from behind it.
Oh, wow. So hopefully...
Blobby, be more blobby.
It'll end up getting cut, right?
Yeah,
From
it
the
won't,
final segment. Yeah,
they're like, pausing this. Get this out of here.
And Dr. Frankenstone and I did some shtick, and then they also interviewed Wes, who got to, of course, retell the story of how he acquired the Blob.
And he had the Blob here, and he had the set piece and stuff. It was actually neat.
Yeah.
And he was showing the set piece to the camera and everything, and how how it works.
It's amazing to me, the magic of it. It's such a simple thing. It's like, okay, let's get this weird silicone stuff, and then let's make these little dioramas, and then just kind of. It was neat to hear Wes explain all of that, and how it's simple but magical. We don't have. It's like I know people like. I don't like one of those people who just hate CG wholesale. I think the people who do CG are angels because it's like mind-numbing, awful. The pixel minds of Burbank, where these guys just like are destroying themselves, staying up all hours of the night trying to make things look real. But in those days,
because if the Blob is made today, it's going to be CG. Not even the '80s Blob was CG.
Not even the '80s Blob was CG, and I think if they were to try to make I think they are trying to make a new Blob.
I wouldn't be
movie,
surprised. Yeah.
That it would be CG, but in those days, they couldn't justify spending that kind of money on that kind of a movie.
And
and
it was a church group that's funded it, wasn't it? Isn't that the
they
history
didn't
of this?
fund it. The group that was did the actual filming was Valley Forge Studios, and they primarily did educational and inspirational films. And so basically, Jack Harris, the producer, co-opted that company to make this film out here for less money versus making it in Hollywood for lots.
And Valley Forge is nearby too. Valley Forge is about 30 minutes from here.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
It's a hometown thing made by hometown people, and I think that it makes it perfect for this kind of
And
event.
the Blob came from the Home Depot.
The Home Depot.
I wanted to just throw one more home.
Wow.
I just wanted to bring this all home.
You're bringing it home.
Wanted to hit a home run.
What I think is amazing about these movies is that there are movies in 1958, movies that millions of dollars were spent on that no one remembers and probably doesn't play in a theater anywhere in this country. But The Blob, which was made for a modest budget by a small group of people in a Pennsylvania town, is screened many times in theaters, not just at Blobfest, but in theaters all over the country and all over the world every year.
And it was intended to be a B movie and was intended never to be a hit. Yeah, never thought to be a hit. And
and I think about Night of the Living Dead, where the whole town in Pittsburgh came together and made a film, or perhaps Carnival of Souls, where I think it was in Kansas, where they filmed. The filmmaker was from Kansas, and I think they filmed in Kansas and Utah, and the Salt Flats or wherever that is. And I think that there is something to that where it's people making it, a bunch of people coming together and collaborating, and there's that heart and soul, like Mom's Home Cooking. You know it when you see it, and there's a earnestness there in the production that I think comes through, and I think that it's interesting that a lot of these Hollywood movies have lost their luster, and a lot of these cheap horror films have lasted.
They live on.
Yeah, and. So that's super, super cool, and it gives hope for guys like us who are always doing cheap ass work. That perhaps maybe our stuff will linger, and people will have warm fuzzy feelings about it.
I know about lingering.
You linger a lot.
I linger a lot, and even when I'm not there, something still lingers.
Yes, I can attest to that.
So I guess we're doing something in the next couple of days.
Yes, we're shooting.
Did this a similar thing last year.
We're filming the inserts for because the run out usually has a storyline that builds up, which usually involves the on the scene reporter dash daring, and so we're going to be filming in the locations of the Blob. With Dash, and again, bringing it home to the original film. We will be going to the downtown diner. There's a diner that was eaten by the Blob in the film, and then there's of course the not just the Colonial Theater where they run out, but there's this weird corner that they come running around, which is nowhere near the theater. But in the movie, through movie magic, that corner, when they come spilling out around that corner, it's right. You're assuming it's right near the movie theater.
It's movie magic. And
then there's the Doc's house, and So there's a lot of, I don't know how we can give time to do the high school, but that's the neat thing about the Blob is that all the places that are in the film are still here. Mm-hmm. So I'm very much looking forward to being the MC, the master of ceremonies, meeting everyone. It's such again honor and a thrill to be associated even scantly with the legacy of such a seminal monster movie.
Tied to it.
What? Yeah.
You're slightly tied to it.
Yeah.
Kinky.
It is a little kinky.
All right.
Yeah, a little bit. Tied to a blob.
I don't know how the physics of that works.
Yeah, I don't know. It's getting sticky. All right. All right. So, how much,
we did.
Yeah,
3 minutes.
All right. That was the hand sign, but then of course you just spell it out. 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Paul's been doing all sorts of hand signs.
Because I wasn't going to say it on the air, and then I'm like, fuck it, I've put 3 up, and you're like, what's that? I'm like, read between the lines. That's what it means. Look at that. Kentucky Fried Movie is going to be here in September.
Let's do it.
I've never seen Kentucky Fried Movie.
Never.
My background with Kentucky Fried Movie, seeing it at USA up all night.
Rhonda Shear,
that's when
the
I saw
horror
it.
host,
Or Gilbert Gottfried.
Or Gilbert Gottfried,
I don't
or
remember
both.
which.
We found out that they overlapped.
Yes.
I think we were of a mind that one of them was before the other. I think I thought it was Rhonda first and then Gilbert Gottfried.
One
and
was
then
on a
you
Friday
thought
and one's on a
It was
Saturday.
Gilbert and then Rhonda, and then we realized that they both did it concurrently. Again, we talked about so many hosts today. Dr. Shock was mentioned today, and Zachary was mentioned today, and Big Chuck and Little John, and a lot of people saw the Blob on television. A lot of people saw things like Kentucky Fried Movie on television, and there's that.
I get the theater experience. It'll be interesting, because I can't confirm or deny whether I saw the Blob before last year.
Yeah.
But I was here with my daughter, I was there with my mom, and we came in and we watched it, and it was kind of fun to be in the audience, and the audience is like, ooh, they're all singing to the music, they're all reacting to it. When the Blob shows up, everybody screams. It was just kind of fun to have that interaction.
A splat, a Blob. Be careful of the Blob. Beware of the Blob. Okay, we got to work on that.
Yeah.
I think I need to practice.
What were we singing this morning?
Girl from Ipanema?
Oh no, we were singing the Love Boat.
The Blob Boat. Soon we'll be taking another run. The Love Blob. Soon we'll be pulsating, throbbing. Okay. Anyway. What do we think?
It was fun to be in that audience.
Well, that's neat. I'm glad your family
fun
had a good
with my
time.
daughter who was 12.
Yeah.
So she got to, because it's an old movie, Dad. I don't know if I'd like it and stuff. She enjoyed it. We watched that. We watched the other movie that was with it, which I can't remember what it was, but it was in 3D, which I think is the first time I've ever seen an old 3D movie.
Was that 13 Ghosts or
I don't remember, because I think we
House
came
on
in
Haunted Hill? No,
it
was
wasn't.
not.
No, it was one of them with it was meteors and aliens and stuff.
Okay. It came from outer space.
That was it.
It came from
because we
didn't.
We weren't there from the beginning. We were there halfway through the movie.
13 Ghosts is not 3D. It has the ghost viewer, so you can either look through the red part or look through the blue part, depending on whether or not you believe in ghosts. So that was sort of a cheap 3D kind of thing. And then, and then of course, House on Haunted Hill was never in 3D. It was an Emergo, which is just a plastic skeleton dragging out over the audience. And then you saw It Came from Outer Space.
It Came from Outer Space
3D, which was made by Universal by Jack Arnold, who made The Creature from the Black Lagoon, same director.
And then we stayed and we saw Wax House or Waxworks with
House of Wax.
House of Wax, Vincent Price.
And that was by 20th Century Fox put that out, Vincent Price, and I believe
it wasn't in 3D.
Someone tell me, but I believe House of Wax was the first feature that was fully 3D.
There was a lot of gags in there that led me to believe that it was in 3D at one time.
The guy with the paddle,
the
guy with the paddle
he's hitting
ball.
it through the thing. And that scene goes on forever. It goes on forever. It's like, I know I'm in a modern mindset where it's like, oh, come on.
I love that stuff, though. Popping the champagne cork right at the camera. Just desperately trying to have things, people with like party favors. Anything that'll come out at the camera, blowing bubbles, whatever it takes, just whatever. You can tell that they have like a brainstorming, a BS meeting, where they figure out all the things that can come out at the camera to justify this stupid.
They're trying to roll as many 20s as they can, and not as many ones.
Roll their natural 20 without Trump playing a trump card.
Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts is come out to Blobfest. If you're hearing this podcast before Blobfest, right?
Yeah.
It's Blobcast before
Hopefully,
Podcast
yes.
Fest.
Hopefully.
If you're hearing this Blobcast before Podfest, please come out and even if it's just Saturday for the street fair.
When's the dates?
This is
Dates
the
and times.
13th, 14th, and 15th of July,
Thank you.
2018. And the Friday night is sold out, but you're welcome to watch from behind the barricades as everyone runs out. Then on Saturday, street fair all day long. I think we start 10 a.m. in the morning and we go till 5 p.m. And then we've got a spook show at 4:30 p.m. with Mr. Lobo, and then a 7 p.m. show, a double feature, The Blob and I Married a Monster from Outer Space, which is the original double bill reunited once again. So
Nice.
60th anniversary for both films. And we'll have lots of giveaways and fun on stage. Costume contest during the day at the street fair. And then on Sunday, we're showing the Demon with the Atomic Brain. And we're showing, I believe we're having Rico Brandon, the creature from the Black Lagoon, the actor in person, who I believe is the last living Universal monster actor. And he will be there on hand, and we will also do a slow-mo run out to close the show Friday, probably I guess around 6 p.m., something like that.
Okay. We should record a commercial for this to throw into our little.
Okay, that's a good idea. Maybe we can do that at home.
Yeah, maybe we should have talked about that with the mics off though.
Probably. Maybe you can edit this part out.
I doubt it.
Oh, well. Always professional, Paul. Always professional.
I try.
Thank you for joining us for our special Blobcast. Or is it Blobcast? Blobcast.
Yes, that's if it was Dracula.
Blob. I'm Count Blob.
Blah 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 blah.
Thank you.
Not say blah blah blah.
I know that the Blob, this is probably a little. I don't know how people's feelings about these movies or how these things. I guess if you're listening, you're our people. But there is something about a little silliness, about things that don't take themselves too seriously. And we need more of that. We need some corniness. We need a little corny light in this world of darkness and gloom. I'm ready to crash and go right back into my deep depression for a few days. But I did enjoy having some fun with you today and talking about some family fun here at Blobfest. Paul, any remarks? Any last remarks?
No.
Okay. Well, it creeps, it crawls, it eats you alive. And now Paul and I are going to run. Are we ready to run? Are we going to run out?
Run.
Okay, let's go.
Oh, wait, I'm supposed to get up.
You have been listening to the Sleepless Knights podcast, or should we say, pODDcast.
PODDcast.
Emphasis on the odd. Our theme is by Mars Homeworld at Dead House Music. Our opening announcement is by Ophelia Necro. She does a radio show called Suicide Watch. And you could reach Mr. Lobo at cinemainsomnia.com or find me on YouTube, YouTube/Mr. Lobo, MisterLobo. Mr. Lobo on Facebook, Facebook/mr.lobo, or on Twitter at Mr. Lobo, MisterLobo.
Or you can find myself, Paul Sanders, or better known as Bestow TV, at Bestow.tv, on YouTube /Bestow TV, on Twitter at Bestow Prod, Prod, and on Facebook, Bestow TV.
If you want to place an advertisement with this podcast, and gosh, why wouldn't you? We could be talking about you right now. Contact us, Mr. Lobo at cinemainsomnia.com. That's MRLOBO @CINEMAINSOMNIA.com. Or support us on Patreon.
Patreon supporters get to hear this podcast before anyone else and a lot of other great stuff, right, Paul?
Sure.
Doesn't get it better than that, right? So come join the fun at patreons.com/cinema insomnia. That's patreon.com/cinema insomnia. Please stay up with us next week for another Sleepless Knights podcast. Or should we say, pODDcast.
Podcast.
The best thing about being an insomniac is never having to say goodnight.
Good night.